Okay, so this is just a video I'm doing in relation to a recording that I listened to from James White. And normally I wouldn't bother, doing anything relating to him, but it's just something that he said. And of course, people think that he's some great scholar, X, Y, Z, knows his Bible, blah, blah. But I'm only doing this because it looks like he doesn't really know his Bible that well. The problem is that he's a Calvinist, and so he only seems to know his Bible according to how a Calvinist does. And so anything which Calvinists don't like, they just ignore. So what I'm just going to do is just going to get on with this. So this is a recording. So if you listen to what he's saying,
God tells David, yes, Saul would do X, Y, and Z, therefore get your tush out of there. If such and such had happened, then this would happen. But this is all after the decree. And so this is based upon the fact that God knows what Saul's going to do, not only because God knows all of time, but God made Saul.
Right. So what he's essentially trying to say is that because God... Essentially, when God made people, he already knows what they're going to do because he made them. And, when you listen to him, it sounds like what he's saying makes sense. But there's a problem. As he's going through, there's something he doesn't tell you. And best thing is, if you want to know what I mean, because I want to maybe just skip, well, it's too long, it's 20 minutes to go, because this is where this part starts. And if you just go on his channel and just go to this video, which is too far. This sad Twitter thread one. So this is the recording. So if you just go and watch this one, and then just go to, it's about 57 minutes in where he starts to mention it. And essentially listen to this part to the end and see if at any point, I'll make the point rather than giving it all away now. Let's carry on.
And God created Saul in a certain way. So, for example, isn't it obvious that in Saul's experience, fact that he was a big man, that he had great physical prowess, don't you think that entered into how Saul did things and responded and acted? It did. But who made Saul tall? Who made Saul tall? Who called Saul? I don't know. I'm not.
So what he's essentially saying is that it's the way God makes us that determines how we act. So in a way, he's kind of making a mistake there because he's essentially saying that God sets. Well, he's being a bit like what do you call them? I forgot what you call them now. The engineer. They're the ones who. That's it. Intelligent design, that's it. He doesn't realize he's talking like an intelligent design believer because that's what they believe, that God put evolution in motion. And so everything we see now has just been put in motion. Then it evolved after God started it. I think that's it. I might be slightly wrong in some things I'm saying. But let's carry on.
I never watched that TV show either. The point is that it is a result of God's choice, which is right there. This is where God's will and choice is seen. And so that free knowledge results from what God has chosen to do.
Yeah, and you see, you'll find out what I'm saying afterwards. See, what he's saying is that God makes the choice, and then people are free to do what they want according to what God has chosen before they make the decision. And then, but it's because God already knows their free decision. That's why he makes them a certain way to carry out his plan.
Of the Reformation. Well, really, it was more of a period of Reformation.
See, the problem is he takes too long because he's like an orator where he likes to just speak fancy. So you get all these long pauses, which are unnecessary.
Assertion of what is called middle knowledge. Middle knowledge. Why is it called middle? Because it's between God's natural knowledge and his free knowledge. That's why it's called middle. Doesn't seem like the best terminology, but, there wasn't.
What he's doing, he's just trying to criticize some people who believe in this free knowledge thing, where they're saying, they're trying to, essentially just complain about them trying to make God like a man or like humans.
Anybody in charge of creating terminologies back then. So the God, Luis de Molina, and in salvation, and this undercut the Roman Catholic system of the sacraments, and especially the synergistic system of the Roman Catholic Church. And so what you do is you come up with this idea that God has a special kind of knowledge, middle knowledge. And what middle knowledge allows God to know is what now this is what's interesting to me is this is only relevant to man. It's only relevant to free creatures, quote unquote. It has nothing to do with anything else. And all of creation has nothing to do with stars or.
And the thing is, this middle knowledge thing, as you'll see, is some crazy stuff that some people have thought up.
Galaxies or anything. It's just all about man. Does John Smith, okay? We've got John Smith over here. John Smith, if God places John Smith.
All right, I'm going to just speed this up. I don't know if some people might find it annoying, but I think you should be able to know what he's saying at double the speed. So I'll just boost it up.
In any set of circumstances. So if God creates a world where John Smith lives in the 20th century and lives in Europe, in Germany, John Smith, well, he wouldn't have the name John Smith, would he? Yeah, well.
Yeah, actually, sometimes he talks fast, so I think 1.5 is the best I can do.
Yeah, okay, well, okay, he's over in England. John Smith will join the army, and he will be in the Air Corps. Because this middle knowledge gives God infallible knowledge of anything John Smith would do, no matter when John Smith lives, in any world that God...
Yes, he knows he said any world, so this is the mad stuff that they believe. And here's the problem with all of this. Well, anyway, let's just carry on.
God would place John Smith. Now, let's think about what all that means. Because John Smith doesn't just pop out of the air. John Smith is the offspring of an entire line of people. So, how could you know? This is something how can you know these things? But whatever world and one of the most important things is, God would know which worlds in which John Smith would accept Jesus and which ones he wouldn't. And there's even discussion that God would know that there is no world in which John Smith would ever accept Jesus.
And you see, and this is the thing. So obviously he disagrees with these guys, and I do as well. Because the essential problem that they cause by saying that you can have all these different worlds is that, and you'll mention it as well, that what it means is that there's some worlds where God actually doesn't get his will, which is amazing. So that means God isn't all powerful then. So that's why he doesn't like this middle knowledge nonsense that, some people are coming up with.
That's interesting. So this middle knowledge, you need to see, is before this line. It's before the decree to create. Because middle knowledge then serves to delimit the possible worlds that God can create. So because he has middle knowledge, God can run all these massive numbers of scenarios.
Anyway, I know what you're saying perfectly, but if anyone can't, then all you gotta do is just slow the video down.
Where he has every possible person. And he knows what every possible person will do in any given situation, whatever age they're put in, whatever. And then he comes up with a decree of creation. Now, there's disagreement amongst Molinists, people who follow Molina. There's disagreement as to exactly what the algorithm is. That's how we describe it today. He's running the numbers. Is he going for maximal number of people saved? Is he going for maximum amount of good? Does he go for a balance between the maximum amount of good and the least amount of evil?
Yeah, so what they're saying is that he makes does things in such a way so that he gets a balance, But anyway, it's a bit confusing, this part that he's talking about.
They don't know. And the reason they don't know is, as soon as I drew this, I stopped talking about the Bible. Because there's nothing in the Bible about this. I mentioned counterfactuals over here, but there's nothing about, there cannot be, by definition, anything about middle knowledge in the Bible. Why? Well, proponents of middle knowledge will make reference to, for example, the Saul incident, Matthew 11, stuff like that. But that has nothing to do with middle knowledge. It can't, by definition. It's post-decree. Middle knowledge has to be before the decree, or middle knowledge becomes irrelevant. Why do I say it becomes irrelevant? The only reason to come up with middle knowledge is to find a way to artificially say that God is sovereign and man is autonomous. The cost of that is to say that there is this middle knowledge that
I think what you said man is autonomous. I think that's what you said there, just in case you didn't get that.
Defines what every person will do. Every person will do exactly this and nothing more in any given situation. But John Smith here is known by God before God decrees to make John Smith. That is the key assertion of middle knowledge. Now, some proponents of middle knowledge don't even want to talk about this. They sort of want to do the C.S. Lewis mere Molinism type thing. They didn't want to try to substantiate this. Because the reality is, what Molinism is based upon is the assertion that there is some source that defines what every free creature would do in any given situation. And it's not God. It can't be God, because then that would be on this side of the line of the decree. So, back here to John Smith. God has not decreed to make John Smith. And yet somehow God knows what John Smith will do. But you and I both know that so much of what we do is based upon God's decree.
Yes, so what you're saying there is that you heard him say what we do is based on God's decree. So he's essentially saying that the actions and what happens in the world is based on what God has set up beforehand.
There are certain things that have never entered into my mind because God never created me to be able to do those things. I've never been tempted to be a mountain climber. God didn't make me that way. So that's not gonna enter into anything. But it's part of the decree. And so all of our decisions are based upon the gifts that God has given to us.
All right, see, that's it. So he just said there, all of our decisions. Notice he said all, and that's the mistake. So him saying all of our decisions are based on the gifts that God gives us, that is a mistake. And I'm going to show you that once he's finished. All right, let's go.
The inheritance from our family, from our progenitors, our ancestors, the context in which we've been placed. And all of that is a part of what? It's over here. It's part of the decree. So how can God know? How can even God know what a free creature he has not designed or defined would do in circumstances he has not defined or created? Well, it's all hypothetical. But if it's all hypothetical, here's the problem. This middle knowledge in Molinism determines what worlds God can and cannot make. So when he is looking at possible worlds, he is limited in what worlds he can make by the content of middle knowledge.
Yes, that's what I said before. So there are certain worlds that essentially that these people who he's against are essentially saying that God can't handle those worlds, which of course we know is complete nonsense.
Which does not come from his Eudokia. Make that alpha there. No, that looks terrible. Oh, hey, I can erase it that way. That's pretty. I like that. There we go. It doesn't come from his Eudokia. It doesn't come from his boule. It does not come from his will. We don't know where it comes from. It just is. It's just something God has, except it limits God. And it limits his choices. By putting it before the decree then becomes limited to what God is allowed to do on the basis of what has been determined by middle knowledge.
Yeah, I was just going to say also, you might be getting a bit bored of the fact that you have to listen to all of this, but there's a reason why I'm playing it all the way through. And those bits I skip is only like 5 seconds, so he wouldn't have said anything in those sections. Well, for him, it's 7.5 seconds because it's 1.5 times.
He cannot decree to make a world in which all are saved, because there are certain people that, according to middle knowledge, will never be saved. So who determined that? This is the issue. And oh my goodness, the lengths to which our Molinist friends will go to stand on their heads and use empty language and never get around to. I have a clip that I'll eventually play for you, where a well-known young Molinist today just is asked this direct question. How does God have knowledge of what a free creature will do when God has not decreed the very nature of that free creature? What his intelligence is going to be? What anything about him? His physicality, his spirituality, his intellect. Our decisions are all determined by these things, and they all come from the decree. You have...
No, that's not true, but I will show that again. Now, all of our decisions do not come from that initial decree, and I'll show you that 100%.
This weird idea that men and women can somehow be reduced to some kind of floating, ethereal thingy-me-body that gets defined by something out there we don't know, and God goes, oh, that's what those things are going to be. No. That's why up until this point in time, everybody thought natural and free, that covers it. Everything God can do, knows himself perfectly, and everything there's nothing more. You stick this in here for one reason, and only one reason. So that you can pretend that you have an autonomous creature. It's pretense, it doesn't work, but that's what you're pretending to do. So...
And the reason why, like you said, they had to put it in, is they're trying to show the free will of man. So some people think, because the problem is Calvinists, the way Calvinists describe it, it's as if man has no free will because God determines what they do. And problem is, I'll show that obviously isn't the case, because when we look at what the things God does in the Bible, at the verses I'm going to show you, it shows that there is a free will somewhere. And all it really means is that we just don't understand what's going on, really. And the problem is too many of these scholars are trying to be too clever, saying that they know what God's doing. I'll say straight up, I don't know. And other people should just say the same thing as well and not waste their time with this stuff.
The issue that we have now seen in looking at last week, Ephesians 1. Rich is having way too much fun with the cameras. Have you noticed this today? I'm sitting here trying to... Did you hear that? There we go. See? We're dating ourselves. Screen went out. Definitional content of middle knowledge come from when...
He was just talking some nonsense then.
You do not have the decree of God. Because in the moments of God's knowledge, it comes prior to. You can't appeal the decree. So how can you have a disembodied, undefined, undecreed John Smith and yet know exactly what he will do in any given set of circumstances? That makes John Smith into something the Bible never describes any of us as. Did anything we just read from Isaiah even smack of anything like that? Is there any evidence whatsoever?
Notice that he's saying the Bible doesn't this, the Bible doesn't that, and we're still waiting for some Bible verses. Yeah, he read some Bible verses before, but what he did the classic thing a preacher does, is he reads the Bible verses first, lines you up, and then he gives you his philosophy afterwards without any Bible verses, showing that it's actually his own philosophy that drives him, not what's in the Bible.
That any prophet, any apostle, ever even dreamed of this? None. Absolutely none. And yet, you have people today go, that's what, boy, that just answers all the questions, doesn't it? And they really believe that it does. I mean, I've heard people interviewing folks going, man, that just, you can have a sovereign God, and yet we're doing only what we will, and that just answers all the questions. Poor objector in Romans 9, don't even know why Paul could have just said, you still don't understand middle knowledge? Come on. There's a way around this. That's why they got to do it the way that they do. The sad thing is, the result is this decree is no longer an expression, hence self-glorifying expression, of the triune God's eudokia.
All right, I'm going to just slow it down slightly, because sometimes he speaks fast and you can't tell what he's saying.
It is now what he gets glorified for is being this supercomputer that you feed in all the data from middle knowledge, and that data from middle knowledge then allows him to understand which of the many possible worlds over here he can actually actuate, and then you have this idea that mankind is somehow free, but it's not. It's a really cheap freedom, because how can you really say, oh yeah, man does whatever he wants to do, except God micromanages everything around him, so he does only what God wants him to do.
Well, that's kind of true, because guess who controls the weather and the sun and X and Y and Z?
What kind of autonomy is that? Oh, but he's still free because of middle knowledge. So you end up with creatures who...
And also, who controls the viruses, the flies, the locusts, and, it's not man that controls them.
Do what they do because God's put them in that situation, and they couldn't have done other because middle knowledge already said what they were going to do. And then you end up with a God whose decree is basically that of a quantum computer. You fed the stuff in, you ran the algorithm, and now his eudokia becomes the output of a quantum computer. And we call it good? Okay, there you go. There you go. See why it's important? See why it matters? And automatically what happens at this point is people go, well, I've read such and so. Okay, all right. So what I would like to do, as we have time to do so, is I would like to use my Kindle edition of The Only Wise God by William Lane Craig.
I might turbo this up again because now he's just doing some stuff.
Walk through what he says. And then if you want to use some other guys, I've got their Kindle books too. And if you think there's something where Craig has just missed it or he didn't emphasize this properly or whatever, take a look at it. Why is it important? I honestly believe that when we allow Scripture to be that which determines the entire fabric of our worldview, rather than creating a worldview out of human philosophy and papering it with scriptural passages. There's a vast difference between those two things. There is a vast difference between creating your theology based upon the demands of the consistent application of solid hermeneutics to the entirety of Scripture, and coming up with something through the wisdom of your mind and attaching various Bible passages to it. Vast difference. And I think God is glorified when his truth is magnified. And I think God is glorified when we realize that this creation thankfully involves his grand provision for mankind, but it's not about us. It's not about us, and when we limit him to our categories, we do so to the detriment of his glory. Tremendously so. Tremendously so. So, there's some thoughts for today. Hopefully useful to you. Yes, sir. Even though we do not have a rich cam, we do have a comment from the studio audience. I will attempt to communicate it to you. So all you ever do is talk about war. All I ever do is talk about war? Oh, yes! You gotta take the Twitter takeaway for today's show. The Twitter takeaway, yes, the Twitter takeaway. Rich is telling us that his Twitter takeaway is that all I ever talk about is war, because I used illustrations from World War II and the Battle of Midway. And that's exactly how Twitter interprets everything. They hear a sentence and miss the whole rest of it. Yeah, that's pretty much how Twitter works. There's no question about it. Well, thank you for that, Rich. I appreciate that you are always very helpful along those lines. Very, very, very much so. All right, well, boy, I can't even... No, those things are so small, it's unbelievable. Anyway, I'll hopefully be able to rescue my computer later on from the tiny, tiny fonts that are now afflicting me. Thanks for watching the program today. Lord willing, we will see you at our normal time on Thursday, whatever a normal time is for us. Who knows when that is. We do have the end of daylight savings time coming, yay! Which only means we have to change our computations. We don't play other clocks anyways, but it's coming up this weekend if you're wondering about that. But that means next week at a different time for you, but not for us. Thanks for watching. We'll see you. God bless.
So you see... So went through all to the end, and there is a reason why I did that. And that's because as he was describing what he believes at the end there, notice no Bible verses, because he wants to make it seem as if that it's God that puts things in motions, and then that's it. And so what we do, and that makes it seem like we have no free will, and which is of course why these Molinists, as he seems to call them, have to make up their stuff. So let's actually see what the Bible has to say now. So now the first one I'm going to go to is, so this is David and about Saul. And I think, yeah, scroll down a bit actually. Because this is where, yeah, so this is First Samuel 16:14, and it says, but the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord troubled him. And Saul's servant said unto him, Behold, now an evil spirit from God troubleth thee. So notice there, poor old James is saying that, God put everything in motion, and then what we do is determined by that decree. Well, suppose this decree seems like the decree needs a bit of a boost, because now God had to send the evil spirit. So it says that an evil spirit from God troubled him. So you'd think that if what James was saying was true, then the evil spirit wouldn't be necessary, because then Saul would just do what God decreed like a robot. But no, obviously God knows that Saul has a free will. So that's why he has to send the evil spirit once David has been anointed, as you see in 13. I'm just going to scroll down this one, because here's the other thing, is if we just go quickly. So now, if we say the decree of David was to defeat Goliath, then what should have actually happened is that David should have gone out there, used the strength of his muscles that God gave him from the beginning, and then been able to defeat Goliath. But let's see what David says. So, the Lord be with you. See, even Saul said unto David, go and the Lord be with you. So if James was right, Saul wouldn't even have to say this, because it's already been decreed he's going to win. So obviously God doesn't have to be with him, because he's already decreed from the beginning and given him the power to beat, what's his name? Goliath. And let's see, yeah, so let's see what David says. Now, so this is David. Let's see what he says. Is he going to say, I'm going to use my power that God gave me from the beginning to destroy you? So let's see what he says. Then said David to the Philistine, thou comest to me with a sword and with spear and with a shield. But I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. This day will the Lord deliver thee into mine hand. And I will smite thee, and take thine head from thee, and I will give the carcasses of the hosts of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air. And 47 says, and all this assembly shall know that the Lord saveth not with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. So, I thought James said that God had made the decree, and so now David is just doing what God decreed. So why does God have to give the battle into their hands? Since it should be God's decree that David use his strength in order to win the battle. But anyway, this first one is a bit of a weak one, because I could see how, James obviously could get around this one, but the other ones are definitely better. So this is a good one. This is like a James White defeater. And so this is Ezra 1:1. It says, now in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, that the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah might be fulfilled, the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom, and put it also in writing, saying, thus says Cyrus, king of Persia, the Lord God of heaven hath given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he hath charged me to build him an house at Jerusalem, which is in Judah. So notice that it says there that the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus. It didn't say there that the Lord had made a decree before Cyrus was created that he would actually build the house at Jerusalem. No, it says so that the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah. So this is happening after Jeremiah spoke the prophecy. So God gave the prophecy to Jeremiah. This is after he did the decree, remember. So no one knew about this prophecy before Jeremiah spoke it. So obviously, what I'm essentially saying is that because God knows the free will that people have to do what they want to do, he has to actually step in after his decree to actually micromanage or massage what is going on, as I would say. So yeah, there is some micromanage going on, even though James White doesn't want that to happen. Well, it's unfortunate, This is the Bible, isn't it? The micromanagement is happening. So let's go to the next one. So this is Exodus 9. And so let's see what yeah. So this is just, so we can just skip down. And so go to 8. And the Lord said unto Moses unto Aaron, take thou to you handfuls of ashes of the furnace, and let Moses sprinkle it towards the heaven in the sight of Pharaoh. So why is God telling Moses to do that? Why not just leave things in his decree so Moses just works out what to do? Because remember, James White thinks that Moses has been made to do all of what he needs to do in order to free the people. So God can just sit back and relax. And Moses will just step in according to how he's been programmed by God from his birth to do this. But notice that the Lord had to say unto Moses and telling them to take the handful of ashes of the furnace. So he's telling them what to do. So what that shows you is that if God didn't tell them to do this thing about with the ashes, then the next part wouldn't happen. And so this is where this is the boils. And so let's see what happens. So let's skip down. So it says, 11 says, and the magicians could not stand before Moses because of the boils, for the boil was upon the magicians and upon all the Egyptians. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had spoken unto Moses. Oh, see, again, the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh. So, but I thought James said that this decree happened like before the person was born, but now he's actually stepping in and hardening his heart post-decree. So yeah, again, so that shows you the nonsense that some of these, what they call Calvinists, that's it, will speak about this decree business. This is why I wouldn't waste my time with that. All I'll do is say that God knows everything, we know nothing, and we just listen to what God says. That's what I would teach people. I wouldn't come up with all this extra nonsense like these Calvinists are coming up with, because it's too complicated. So let's get to the next one. Right, so this is Apostle Paul now. So this is New Testament. So this is 2 Thessalonians 2. I mean, everyone with any sense should know this one. And let's go... Yes, so 8 says, for the baby, you should be this time. Yeah, and then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan, with all power and signs and lying wonders, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. So now I wonder, so they didn't receive the love of the truth in order for them to be saved. So that's a decision they made, isn't it? So these Calvinists, are they trying to say that God decreed that these guys would actually, they'd been decreed to not receive the love of the truth? Well, alright, let's find out. For this cause, God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believed not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. Oh, wait. So they believed not the truth. Oh, so was that decreed by God? So now God's like Allah. You see, this is the problem with these Calvinists, is that they just don't know what they're talking about. Now they're trying to make God like Allah, where he's decreeing that someone is going to receive not the truth, because that God decreed it, and then he's going to send strong delusion to people who he's decreed to not receive the truth, so they should be damned? Well, no, I don't think so. So, reading just plain stuff in the Bible, all I can say to you is that if you're a Calvinist, just don't bother and give up. Because now's not the time to be wasting time with all this Calvinist nonsense, when the Bible is plain in front of you, showing that, yes, God set things up in a certain way at the beginning, but then he steps in to, guess what, micromanage, which of course James White doesn't like, but that's just tough, isn't it? And let's finish us off with the last one. And so this is, this is just Romans 9. And so let's go to, bring Christ. So we go to verse 8. So, but what says it? The word is nigh thee, even in thy mouth and in thy heart. That is the word of faith which we preach. That if thou shalt confess... Oh, yeah, let's skip down. I think I skipped... Yeah, I think this is scrolled. Sometimes it keeps happening. It's scrolled, isn't it? Because that's Romans 10. It's supposed to be 9. Yeah, I don't know why that happens. Yeah, so alright, let's start with Romans 9:19. Thou wilt say then unto me, why doth ye yet find fault? For who hath resisted his will? So C.C. James would love this part. So look, who's resisted his will? Well, no one is, isn't it? Because as we saw in the previous verses, God stirs up the heart and he hardens the heart. So yeah, you can't resist that, can you? Because it's something God's physically doing, and he did make you. So that's the end of that. So who hath resisted his will? Well, no one. Nay, but, O man, who art thou that repliest against God? Shall the thing formed say to him that formed it, why hast thou made me thus? So this is a classic Calvinist one, where they're saying, look, it's the thing saying that, why have you made me this way? So it's showing that the person is acting according to how they've been made. So yeah, they've been made a certain way, but not to do evil. That's the thing. So it says, hath not the potter power over the clay of the same lump to make one vessel unto honor and another unto dishonor? So now a Calvinist would read that and say, look, see, God can make one vessel unto dishonor. That means he's making him evil. But here's the thing. God doesn't instruct anyone to do evil. He makes the body in such a way, and it's the person who decides to do evil. And this is where the power of God comes in. Because God knows they're going to do evil, but he's not going to tell them to do it. And that's the power of God where it comes in. That fact that he's not going to tell a single of these vessels of dishonor that to do evil. He doesn't have to tell them because they're going to do it themselves. So he's going to make the vessel, but he's not going to make the vessel evil or to make them do evil. They're going to decide to do it. And so this is, what if God, willing to show his wrath and to make his power known, endured with much long suffering the vessels of wrath fitted to destruction, and that he might make known the riches of his glory on the vessels of mercy, which he had afore prepared unto glory. So yeah, so as we're reading here, so this is a classic Calvinist one where they love this. I'll just spat on. Oh no, you can't see that. I'll just spat on the screen. Yeah, because it's a good thing I wasn't using a webcam, isn't it? Yeah, all right, yeah. So and that you might make known the riches of your glory unto the vessels of mercy, and so it's going down to the Jews and Gentiles part. So this is the part that Calvinists love to use, because they say, look, see, it's saying that God made them in such a way so that they do what he wants. Well, yes, to a degree, but no, he didn't make them to do evil. That's the important thing. Any evil that they do, he didn't make it for them to do that. He just gave them a body that could do the evil. That's all it means. Yeah, anyone can do evil. But he's preparing their bodies according to what he knows they're going to do. He's not telling them to do it. That's the important thing. And we know that's the case because these previous verses where God has to step in and micromanage. So because said unto Moses, that's micromanagement. So here we see confirmation that God micromanages, which of course James doesn't like, and that's just tough. So he's just going to have to deal with that. And so all I can say is to anyone who's got any sense, yeah, I know hardly anyone's going to watch this video, but who cares? But any of you two people who have any sense who watch this, that don't worry about these Calvinists, and all you have to know is that God made us, and he made us a certain way, and he knows what we're going to do, and so he makes us so that whether we do good or evil, that will then achieve his aim. But he's not going to tell us to do the good or evil. That's the important thing. Of course, if we do some good, he might come and give us some advice. But if we're doing the evil, then it's just goodbye, and he's just going to let us go down into the flames, because we're the ones who have to repent, and not him. Hopefully someone will get something from this, and if you want me to do any more things like this, then just leave a comment, and I'll see what else I can do.